1920, her dad opened the camp, Laurel Falls Camp for Girls. It started out below the mountain where the hotel is. Around Laurel Falls, there's Chechero Creek that runs back there, and Laurel Falls is on that creek. And Lil was in China from about 1923 to 1925. She went there to teach music and all of that. 1925, her dad called her back to, help with the camp, and she came back and became director. Bought the camp in 1928 from her parents and then ran it through 48. So this spot was the camp. I mean, if you look in the distance, you see two buildings back there that were actually part of the camp. And there were girls up here from all over, not just Georgia. They were over from the Northeast. They were over from Florida. There were some even international, couple from Japan and other countries too. And that is the camp. When the camp closed, she, of course, still lived up here until she died in 66. Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream, Rosa Parks. Those are what we know about the civil rights movement. We don't get typically beyond that in our educational system, and even in our cultural kind of discussions, except for at some points. And she was very much involved in the civil rights movement from the 40s and the 30s, I would even say, up until her death in 66. She died 2 years before King's assassination in 68.
Wow.
She was intimately involved with all of this. One of the things that I always say is when the Montgomery bus boycotts happened in the mid-50s, she wrote to King expressing her support for the bus boycotts and sent him money. He wrote her back saying, "Thank you for the support. Thank you for everything you've given us." And he wrote one sentence in there that caught my attention. This is 1956, 57, I forget the exact year. But he basically said, "I've read you for a long time. It's a pleasure to get to know you. Maybe we can meet in person." This is King starting off his, national career, basically. And then this is Lillian Smith, this white woman from Northeast Georgia, who he has read and admired. And then if you read Letter from a Birmingham Jail, which most high school students do, she is one of the whites that he mentions in there as one of the whites who was doing good work. Not one of the moderates, but one of the ones who was doing the work. He praises her in that speech and in 3 or 4 other speeches. So if anybody asks why she's important, that's always what I give is she's important because she's doing this work, like I said, as a white woman in Northeast Georgia from the 30s, really through her death in 66.
Lillian was a trailblazer, especially for the period of time that she was active in and the community that she was active in. It's almost crazy to think about all the contributions she made despite her circumstances. And she spoke out a lot about living in the South and segregation and how these communities were treating each other. And it was dangerous to do so. She got a lot of threats made against her because she was the one speaking out when no one else was. And I think that the fact that she was able to still spread her message is almost a miracle because she had so many different people that tried to silence her. And I mean, looking back now, trying to uncover some of those pieces that were almost lost to history. We get to look at the camp and look at some of her original writings, some of her books that were almost banned and were never republished again. So it's really interesting that despite how volatile she was in that time, she was able to still make an impact.
She was short in stature and tall in her image. You knew that you were talking to someone that was important, someone who cared about you, someone who would make you, who would listen to you, and someone that you could learn something from. She was a very, very cultured lady. She had the kind of Southern gentility with a power behind it that you would really listen to and want to be a part of.
Without art, I can't imagine there being such a thing as the human being, the person. We think of many important things to being a person, and we tend in this political age we live in to think about our civil rights and our so-called human rights. But in a way, the most important human right we have, I think, should be the freedom to collaborate in each other's dreams. And that means the freedom to look at a painting and see there what we want to see. And sometimes the critic tries to keep us from seeing what we want to see.